Welcome to Midlife Clarity with Dr. Tracy Page, a podcast for women over 40, navigating hormones, metabolism, strength, and confidence in midlife. Midlife is the moment you start asking bigger questions and expecting better answers. This is where we stop minimizing symptoms, dismissing perimenopause and menopause changes, second-guessing ourselves, and accepting this is just how it is. Instead, we get informed. We get curious. We get clear. Because midlife isn't about hot flashes or hormone shifts. It's about energy, strength, metabolism, relationships, identity, purpose, healthy aging. On this podcast, Dr. Tracy Page blends evidence-based medical insight with honest conversations to help you understand what's happening in your body, support your hormones, strengthen your metabolism, and build lasting confidence in this next chapter. You deserve clarity about your health, and clarity changes everything. Here's Dr. Tracy Page.
Hi, welcome to Midlife Clarity. I am Dr. Tracy Page, and today's topic, let me just say, it resonates with me in 1,000 ways. I'm going to talk to you about the study that scared a generation, and that why the most repeated sentence in women's medicine, I believe, was never actually true. So let's just talk about a 54-year-old woman. She hasn't slept through the night in 2 years. She has hot flashes, which are pretty much ambushing her meetings during the day. The brain fog has gotten bad enough that she started writing down words, common words that she usually knows. And she wasn't sleeping. And she was feeling miserable. And she did the brave thing. She went to her doctor and she asked about hormones. And her doctor looked at her and kindly said, and I've heard this a zillion times, "Oh, I don't like to prescribe estrogen. It causes breast cancer." I can't begin to tell you how many women have come to my office and told me that their primary care or their physician taking care of them told them that estrogen causes breast cancer, or their friend, or their family member, or someone's sister. And they have a ton of patients, and they'll tell me, "Oh, my sister told me this, Dr. Page. Help me understand why she thinks estrogen causes breast cancer," right? And just like that, and I'm talking about the last decade, 2 decades, the conversation's over because patients trust their doctor, right? So this patient went home and she white-knuckled it like so many women have. She did that for years. I mean, I see patients in my practice that come in and they're in their 60s and they're like, "I have been struggling and suffering for 10 years. And all that time, I thought I couldn't have hormones." So here's what nobody tells patients about the Women's Health Initiative. We're going to talk about it today, okay? Estrogen causes breast cancer is built on a single study from 2002. And that study did not say what the patient was told. They said. In fact, for a huge number of women, it actually is almost the opposite. And I will point out right now, the black box warning has been taken off estrogen. This is the most misunderstood sentence in women's medicine today. And today I'm going to take it apart and explain to you why. I'm Dr. Tracy Page. As I said, this is Midlife Clarity. And today we're talking about the study that scared an entire generation of women away from their own hormones. And what we now know in 2026 that changes the whole story. Okay, let's go back. July 2002, a massive government study called the Women's Health Initiative, otherwise known as WHI, stops one of its arms, there's 2 arms, one of its arms early and holds a press conference. The headline ricochets throughout the world, and by morning, hormone therapy has been told that it raises your risk for breast cancer. Okay, the reaction, it's instant, as you can imagine. No one wants cancer. Within months, prescriptions collapsed. Before 2002, about 90% of women who had a hysterectomy were using estrogen. 90%, okay? Within a decade, in women in their 50s, that use has fallen by nearly 80%. That means only 10% of patients were actually using estrogen after that. The class. Estrogen-only therapy in the United States for women between the ages of 50 and 59 fell roughly 79% between 2001, there was a study came out in 2002, and 2011. An entire field of medicine reversed itself in a season. Doctors stopped offering it. Women stopped prescribing it. Women stopped asking for it. It wasn't prescribed. And the fear hardened into something that felt like common sense. Estrogen's dangerous. Estrogen causes breast cancer. I even hear it today in my practice still. I mean, it's ingrained in women, right? But here's the thing about the study that almost nobody heard. Nobody, except maybe some medical professionals, because it didn't fit in the headline. The Women's Health Initiative wasn't one study. It was actually two. And most of you don't know that. Two completely different groups of women taking two completely different things. And the results for those two groups were not the same. They were actually opposite. The Women's Health Initiative had two arms. The headline only had room for one, and that's why you don't know about it. Okay? Let's talk about the two groups. Group one, women who still had their uterus. They took estrogen, so they were in menopause. They took estrogen plus a synthetic progestin, specifically a drug called methoxyprogesterone. Group two, women who had a hysterectomy, no uterus, and they took estrogen just alone by itself. Same trial, but just a different recipe, okay? And when researchers followed these women out for nearly 2 decades, 20 years, more than 27,000 women, the gold standard of medical evidence, okay, the two groups split apart completely. And what did we find? Over 19 plus years, estrogen alone produced a 23% reduction in breast cancer, and estrogen plus a synthetic progestin produced a 29% increase. So let me repeat that. Estrogen alone provided a 23% reduction in breast cancer. So those were women who did not have a uterus, they had a hysterectomy, they were only given estrogen, no breast cancer. Women who had a uterus, who were menopausal, they received estrogen and a fake progesterone called progestin, 29% increase in breast cancer. Two different groups. So the women on estrogen alone got less breast cancer, not more. And they had fewer deaths from breast cancer too. The increase, the thing that scared everyone, only showed up in the group taking estrogen combined with one synthetic progestin. So basically, two recipes that blamed for one bad meal. So they put everything in one bucket. No one ever told women the other side of the recipe, the other arm. Okay, we're going to talk about the scary numbers. Even in the group where the risks did go up, I want you to understand what 29% increase actually means, because relative numbers are designed to frighten you. Think about the lottery. If your odds of winning double, that sounds enormous, 100% increase. But if you start at 1 in 100 million, you're now at 2 in 100 billion, okay? The relative change is huge. The absolute change is almost nothing. So think about it again. Think about the lottery. If your odds of winning double, that sounds enormous, right? Your odds of winning double, and 100% increase. But if you started at 1 in 100 million, so your odds are 1 in 100 million, and now you're 2 in 100 billion, the relative change is huge, right? The absolute change, so being 100% more, 100% increase, is really nothing. The 29% increase in the combined group translated to fewer than one additional case of breast cancer per 8,000 women per year. So even though the women that had the progestin, the increase was one additional case of breast cancer per 1,000 women per year. For context, that's in the same neighborhood as breast cancer risk from drinking a couple glasses of wine a night or carrying extra weight through the midline. This is real and it's worth knowing, but not the monster it was made out to be. The combined therapy increase amounted to less than one extra breast cancer case per 1,000 women per year, comparable to the risk we really panicked about, like having a couple glasses of wine or carrying a little extra weight, right? I tell this to my patients every day. My concern for you and breast cancer goes far beyond the hormones that I give you. It's about the weight that you're carrying. The hormones are actually going to help you lose. It's about the alcohol that you're drinking to help you fall asleep at night because you don't have your hormones. Like that's really is the problem areas. So what did the cost of this fear cost us? Okay. and the 2025 reversal. So in the reversal of all this information. So if estrogen alone was actually protective, what happened to all those women who were scared off of it? Researchers at Yale asked exactly that question. The answer is hard to hear, but I'm going to share it with you. They estimated that in just one decade, women in their 50s who had had a hysterectomy and avoided estrogen out of fear, somewhere between about 19,000 and 91,000 women died prematurely. Their best estimate was around 50,000. So 50,000 women from avoiding a hormone that for them was protective. The Yale analysis estimated about 50,000 excess deaths, ranging from 18,601 to 91,610 among hysterectomized U.S. women ages 50 to 59 who avoided estrogen through 2002 and 2011. I just want to sit with that for a minute because those women died prematurely because they didn't have a hormone that they needed because they thought that it was going to cause cancer. For 20 years, the strictest warning the FDA can issue, the black box warning, set on every estrogen product, telling women it raised their risk of breast cancer, heart disease, and dementia. And here is the news that makes this episode matter right now more than anything. In November of 2025, after reviewing the full body of evidence, the FDA removed the black box warning from all estrogen products for breast cancer, for cardiovascular disease, and for the risk of dementia. The change took effect early in 2026, and there's a great podcast where Dr. Rachel Rubin talks about this. The FDA commissioner said in plain language that millions of women had been denied the benefits of hormone therapy because of this distortion of the risk. And I don't know if that makes you mad, but that really makes me mad. November of 2025, the FDA removed the black box breast cancer, cardiovascular, and dementia warnings from estrogen products, and it became effective February of 2026. Now you know why we have a shortage of estrogen patches. We are experiencing that because now women are like, give it to me, right? Let me be very clear about what this does and doesn't mean because I never want this show to swing from one oversimplification to another, so I want to make sure I point out all the nuances. It does not mean every woman should run out and start estrogen. I want to say that clearly. It is still a prescription medication. It still has real considerations, and there are women for whom it's generally not the right choice. So it's not every woman. The FDA also kept one warning in place about uterine lining cancer for women using estrogen alone, which is exactly why progesterone matters. And that's our entire next episode that we're going to talk about. What it means is this: the fear is no longer allowed to make the decision for you. The conversation is open again, and you should be talking to your doctor about estrogen replacement. So the one ruling the FDA left down there was the endometrial lining. So if you give estrogen unopposed to a woman who has a uterus who's in menopause, if you give her too much systemic estrogen, it can grow over endometrial lining. And if the lining grows too much, it can have changes in the cell structure and it can cause endometrial cancer. That is why we always give our patients who have a uterus and menopause on estrogen progesterone, which is called prometrium, which is not progestin, which is actually progesterone, which is prometrium, which is a bioidentical progesterone that your body makes. And I'll talk more about that in the next episode. So how to think about this, okay? So if you're sitting there with the symptoms, hot flashes, night sweats, weight gain, belly fat, dry vagina, dry skin, hair loss, and you have fear, and the doctor who has shut the door on you and told you can't have estrogen, I want you to think it through in this order for yourself. Know which study actually applies to you. Do you have a uterus or not? The single fact determines which arm of the WHI study is relevant to you, and they had opposite results. Demand, absolute numbers, and not relative ones are what's important. If anyone tells you estrogen raises your risk by X%, ask how many actual women out of 1,000. The honest answer is usually reassuring, and remember I said 1. Okay? Separate the estrogen from the progestin. The breast signal came from a specific synthetic progestin, not estrogen itself. That type of signal matters enormously. More on that next time I talk about estrogen and progesterone. And then the factor in timing. When you start relative to menopause. It changes the whole risk-benefit math ratio. And we're going to talk about that, the third one on estrogen. And individualize your family history, your personal risks, your symptoms, your goals. This is all a conversation that has to occur. This is not just a formula. You really have to have this conversation with your provider, and you deserve to have it. You deserve to have a conversation about hormone replacement. Okay, so what are your action steps? I'm going to give you a few. 6 things you can do before you talk to anyone. Write down your symptoms and how they actually are affecting your life. So know what you're feeling, right? So that's the first step, okay? Sleep, work, mood, intimacy, vaginal dryness, skin, hair. It's not like I'm fine. Like really think about these areas. Find out whether you still have your uterus on record. And I don't think you have to find that have you had a hysterectomy or not, right? It sounds obvious, but the evidence does apply. Whether or not you need progesterone. And I'm going to say I do give progesterone to my patients who don't have a uterus because progesterone is a very calming hormone. It balances out estrogen. So I don't say that just because you don't have a uterus, you don't need progesterone. And I'll talk more about that later. At your visit with your doctor or provider, ask the question directly, does the breast cancer concern come from the estrogen or from the progestin? Because remember, it's progestin that is what was shown in the study. And ask about your, I would say, absolute risk. So remember, it's cases per 1,000, right, that we're talking about. So what is your absolute risk? Now, if you had breast cancer before and it was estrogen positive, then of course you are not eligible for hormone replacement. But I will tell you, I even have some patients who are so miserable that for quality of life, they still consider it. And that's a personal choice, okay? Know how many years it's been since your last period. Bring that number with you when you talk to your provider. And don't let a 2002 headline make a 2026 decision. If your provider is still working from the old script, the old information, it may be time to find a new one because you need more information. So if you hear nothing else from me on this podcast, please hear that estrogen decreased the risk of breast cancer in greater than 23% of patients. Okay? Estrogen hasn't changed. The molecule that scared everyone in 2002 is the exact same one we have today. What changed was the story we were told about it, how long we let a misread headline outlive the evidence. And I am going to mention too, in the Women's Health Initiative, it was oral estrogen, which does increase the risk of clotting factors, which can increase the risk of stroke or heart attack. But remember, in functional integrated medicine, we don't use oral estrogen. We use transdermal, a cream or a patch. The woman I told you about at the beginning, she lost years to a sentence that was never true, right? Estrogen causes breast cancer. You don't have to have that. You're allowed to ask the question again with the real numbers in your hand. Next week, I'm going to go deeper into the part of the headlines got wrong. It was never really about estrogen. It was about progestin. And the difference between the synthetic one and the one your body actually recognizes is the one of the most important things in women in midlife can understand and understand why we prescribe it. This is Dr. Page. If you have questions, please reach out on info@Wisconsin Functional Med. But please know that hormone replacement is available to you. And what you're scared about, remember, is not what the Women's Health Initiative leads it to be. I'm going to leave you with some statistics. Okay, 27,347 women in 2 Women's Health Initiative hormone trials, randomized, placebo-controlled. That's the study that I looked at. Estrogen alone, 23% reduction in breast cancer over 19 plus years. Estrogen and synthetic progestin, 29% increase, right? Over 19.2 years. Estrogen only use in women 50 to 59 fell by 79% between 2001 and 2011, just because of that statement. And about 50,000 estimated excess deaths occurred from not using estrogen. And the FDA removed the estrogen black box warning for breast cancer, cardiovascular disease, and dementia in November 2025, and it became effective in February of 26. So ask yourself, what did you personally believe about estrogen and breast cancer before today? Why do you think the correction took more than 20 years to reach the public, which I find very interesting? And what would you want your own daughter to know walking into this decision? And what should you know? So really think about those, and I'll continue the series in the next episode. When you have clarity, it changes everything. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us today on Midlife Clarity with Dr. Tracy Page. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes where we continue to break down the science, the myths, and the mindset shifts around hormones, perimenopause, menopause, metabolism, and the strength for women over 40, so you can feel like yourself again, maybe even better than before. If something in today's conversation resonated with you, share it with a friend who needs to hear it. Midlife health becomes easier when we stop whispering about hormone changes and start having informed, honest conversations. Before we go, a quick reminder. The information shared on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. It does not replace a consultation with your own physician or qualified healthcare provider. Always seek professional medical guidance regarding your personal health concerns. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and remember, clarity changes everything.